Good evening, everybody. Yes, we are back here, 2021 Exec Global Live. I'm so excited to actually be sharing the platform with you again. My name is Sarah Richson, the one and only who loves talking about emotional intelligence, behaviors. And this year, I'm talking to you about love at the workplace. Yes, I said love. Yeah, I know. I know that people actually think the workplace is not a space where you talk about love or anything. But let me tell you today, it is such, all the years that I've worked in human resources, I have realized that love is one of the key things that makes people go around. So love is not a word you often hear uttered in the office hallways or in conference rooms or things like that. And yet it has such a strong and significant influence on our workplace outcomes and on performance. The more love our coworkers feel at work, the more engaged they are. And we are talking about companionate love. We are talking about something that is less intense, obviously, than romantic love, but it is based on showing warmth, affection, connection, and just being a good companion rather than simply passion. There's been many studies around culture, and many managers think that when you build an emotional culture, you actually don't get performance. But that is actually a mistake. Employees who feel they work in a loving, caring culture have always reported higher levels of satisfaction and teamwork. They have showed up to work more often, because they have built those friends. And when you look at the happiness index, the Gallup index, which we use when we are looking at measuring happiness, measuring culture, measuring performance indicators within an organization, this is actually one key thing. Because I remember doing something with the United Nations, and we were looking at the happiness index, and we were asking ourselves one question: how many employees in this organization have a best friend at work? I'm asking you today, how many of you have met or have their best friend at work? How many of you feel like you can tell your boss anything? How many of you feel like, oh, I can't wait until I get to work and I talk to my friend about this, and they've actually helped them solve issues? And that's why I'm saying certain studies over a long term have seen that many people might consider bias towards the emotional aspects of things, but this actually helps with industries. People who worked in a culture where they feel free to express affection, tenderness, caring, and compassion for each other, who are more satisfied with their jobs. They're actually more committed to the organization and more accountable for their performance because they know that these people truly actually care for them. And so, what would we say a culture where we find love in the work environment looks like? Imagine a pair of colleagues collaborating side by side. Every day they're expressing how much they care and showing some level of affection, safeguarding each other's feelings, being confident, showing some level of tenderness and compassion, especially when things are not going well. Instead of criticizing and bullying and harassing, you imagine a workplace that encourages such behaviors from everyone, where their managers and their leaders are actually looking for different ways to create and reinforce close working relationships among employees, where there are no territories, where there are no spaces where you are saying you can't go here, you can't do this, you can't do that, where you are encouraged because of these kinds of principles and values within the eco system of that organization. We have heard of very many organizations out there. I mean, I can give examples like PepsiCo, Zappos, Whole Foods. These ones where the team becomes the family. I have actually lived with the mantra that your team becomes your family and your family becomes your team. So treat them very well. One of the things I always say, when you're working within a team, don't always think of, if this person doesn't perform, they need to get out. When your child doesn't perform, do they need to get out of the family? When your brother doesn't perform, do they need to get out? So why is it that in a family environment, we actually look for different ways. We become even creative in finding solutions to performance issues, to conflict issues, but we don't have the same patience and the same compassion and the same caring attitude towards the workplace. We have to watch out for each other. I am very excited to be sharing this, especially during and after such an epidemic that hit us from nowhere. 2020 was something that shocked the world. And for those organizations that did not have a culture of love and a culture of caring for each other, who did not go over and beyond for each other, believe you me, this was a very trying time for them. And it made them to really rethink love. So we might think all this love business will be hard for so many people, especially managers and whatever, will get all cushy and emotional and whatever, and it doesn't really help. But we need to see that you can actually find love in some unlikely places. So you can find that even where you're talking to the army or an aero engineer, or I worked in the technology space where you think people are cold and they're just dealing with apps and algorithms. Employees routinely greeted each other with a kiss on the cheek. I would travel to South Africa, I would travel to our francophone areas like Mauritius, I would go to the UK, I would go to Asia, and I would find that love is actually shown in different ways. Visiting executives, from parent companies were actually alarmed to see some of these gestures, finding it not only inappropriate, but sometimes a possible invitation to sexual harassment lawsuits. Although initially, as executives, we tried to prohibit these kinds of affection, ultimately we started realizing actually those cultures were flourishing, and simply acknowledging that some of these things are embedded within local cultures. I remember being taught in one country that you kiss 3 times when you're greeting, and in another country, you kiss twice. And in another country, you greet, in another country, you just bow, and in another country, you hug. And as I was breaking down all these notions and messages that come obviously from my own upbringing, from my own messages from MBA classes that tell us you cannot display affection in the workplace, I found that in reality, actually, this has muted values of humanity in organizations. Surely many managers are actually human beings, and many teams are human beings. And sometimes having a group hug every day can just help to break certain things and create an emotional culture where there is companionate love, where people are not fighting so much for so many things. But to do this, one of the key things we have to do is to broaden our cognitive culture. We need to broaden our values around things like teamwork. It's not okay to just say it, from a hard space and a hard stance, but to be able to show those values, result orientation that comes from working together, collaborating, innovation, forgiveness, cultivating and enriching, an emotional culture that is based on genuinity and authenticity, that gives us such joy and pride to come to work every single day. It creates a mood that has a cultural blueprint for any group and any organization. And it's important that within our company policies and practices, we can actually find a way to foster greater affection, care, compassion, and tenderness among our workers and groups. We need to be able, and I mean, I know in the African culture, I'm an African myself, when a member of an employee's family has passed away, it's almost offensive not to show compassion and to do something towards helping that employee. Some employees actually forego their own vacation to organize for emergency funds and to jump on a bus and accompany this employee to go and bury a loved one, or to go to a loved one's wedding, or to go and visit a sick person from their team. Just imagine this. You're working within a team, You laugh, you produce every day. You're giving your blood, sweat, and tears for this organization. And then one day you fall sick. And you call one of your colleagues, and say, I'm not feeling well, I won't come to work. They're like, okay, fine, we'll pick up the work. You go into hospital and you struggle. You're going through pain, loneliness. Probably you live alone. You don't have anybody else but these colleagues, and nobody is calling. Nobody is bothered. And when they call, it's about that document or that email or that mistake you made, or to ask you, when are you coming back? You're missing those small moments that a coworker could call you, come and visit you, give you a warm smile, send you a kind note or a text or a WhatsApp, give you a sympathetic ear day in, day out. I loved it when I saw one country where one of our country heads had lost their spouse, and they were going through a lot of mental health issues. And when I went there, because I arrived, it was a performance issue, a country performance issue. And so the CEO told me to fly down and check what's going on. And as soon as I arrived, from the receptionist to everybody else, I was being told about the changes in behavior with the country head. And when I told them, how about we utilize this time, instead of complaining about the performance, complaining about the behaviors, complaining about their lack of turning up to work, and show love. And I asked them, what is a practical way that we can show love in the workplace? And guess what they told me? They felt that the best thing is for two people to come together and do a potluck. They would do food, and among them, I was talking to a country that had over 80 people. And so we had 1.5 months covered with every single day, including Saturday and Sunday, where they could visit this person. And they said for the first week, she wouldn't even open the door, but they left a pot of food. They knocked, they said, we love you. They left a note, and they left a pot of food at the door. The third day, when she realized these people keep knocking and keep coming, although she did not open when they were there, the third set of food, she actually opened the door and picked it. The fourth day, she equally did the same. And for that week, she started picking the food because she needed it. She lacked the strength to cook, the strength to talk to anybody, the strength to express herself, the strength to perform. Performance is akin to your emotional space. An emotional space is a fuel for the organization and a fuel for the person to perform, because you can have the best jet and it can actually have the best pilots, but it will go nowhere without fuel. And so let us learn to be compassionate to each other, to encourage productivity, and to hold the hands of somebody else. Because in the second week of these employees doing this and sending this potluck and two people to just say, we love you, we are thinking about you, we are here. The second week, on the Monday, they knocked on the door to say that we are here and we are leaving some food. As they were bending down to leave the pot of food, she opened the door. There was no smile, but she opened the door. And, she told them, you can actually put it on the table. And they did. And with all due respect, they requested, could we sit? And they sat. She was silent for most of the time, answered 2 or 3 monologue, questions, and they left. But it was a breakthrough. Within 3 days in that second week, they were coming in and she was talking a bit more. She realized the healing that came with companionship. And she realized these people are going to love me through whatever mess I'm going through, whatever pain I'm going through. And so she continued. And by the end of that week, she could check some emails. She could respond to certain emails. And in the third week, she had begun working, although she was working from home. She showed up in the office on the fourth week. And they continued to show her love, continued to bring her food, continued to help her, carry her along when she was still feeling weak. Cut the long story short, she healed in the hands of her fellow employees, many of whom she had given jobs for the last 8 years, many of whom she had encouraged to perform. She had taught them, she had mentored them, she had coached them, she had been their leader, she had built the country, and she was falling apart, and they came through for her. Instead of complaining, love won the day. I remember when I was resigning and leaving that job, the biggest satisfaction, and I shared with my husband, this, it came through a Skype note on the last days of when I was living in the organization. And she just wrote, "You saved my life and you saved our country. And you taught me that love conquers all." And I knew what she meant. So I am saying love in the workplace is something extremely important that we shouldn't look away. So, what would love look like at work? A great writer, Riccardi, set out to answer that question. And he actually wrote about love and leadership. He was determined to look at love in the workplace. And he said that he found three things actually show up when love shows up. The first thing, and this was actually covered in a fantastic article by Forbes magazine, and it said the first thing that you see when there is love is intimacy. And in the workplace, intimacy simply means knowing and caring about the personal lives of your team members in an authentic and, listen to this, appropriate way. And I'm sure we all can actually unpack the word appropriate in the most appropriate form and way. You can be intimate. I could know that Mark has a cat. I could know he loves this cat so much. And the cat's name. That's an intricate detail that could help me open up a conversation or understand why he's feeling sad today. I could know Lynette loves pink. And actually, no, she loves fuchsia pink. And she has a daughter who loves pink as well. So they're a pinky family and they love it so much. And so when I'm thinking of gifting, or when I'm thinking of maybe decorating her desk, or doing something, or even just honoring her, I could consider that. The second way love shows up in the workplace is passion. Riccardi says in his work that the positive energy people bring to their work and to their organization's mission and values, the passion of talking and being able to express yourself and how you feel about your organization and your work, even at home, even outside of work. Just that positivity, not slicing down your employers and slicing down your work and always complaining and moaning and groaning, and you're still sitting at that desk and collecting a salary. Finding positivity. I was researching, and this is for a different training, and I was talking about finding the positive in the negative. That sometimes we are so negative towards life, so negative towards teammates, so negative towards everything, towards our work, towards what, because of one thing that went wrong, to the point that we even lose our eyesight and perspective, and we cannot see anything positive. Some negative things, I don't know whether it's happened to you, maybe I'm speaking for a friend of a friend, but for me, a lot of negative things in my life have actually taught me and propelled me and progressed me. So there were lessons in there. And that's why I said it's important to try and find even the positive within the negative. The third way love shows up is through commitment, where there's a dedication to the well-being of others in your team. There's a dedication of helping others to complete a task. There's a dedication to ensure that we meet our client experience and we make sure there's a fantastic experience for our clients. A commitment to meet our shareholders' values. So those are the things that actually show you how love can show up in the workplace. And Riccardi found that when a team member feels loved by his or her boss, by his or her team member, they are more likely to see work and the work environment from a very positive light. So when you want to influence, when you want to gain credibility, when you want to motivate others, when you want to get the job done, you need to think about creating a loving environment. And I cannot complete this by thinking about appreciation. When we appreciate others, in many ways, it shows them that we love them. It's a form, and we've read some of the work around the five love languages by Gary Chapman. And when Chapman was looking at how people express and experience love, and he wrote his book on the love languages, there's many ways that this can actually also show up at work. And people can actually demonstrate this in the workplace. And one of the best ways for people to demonstrate this is to look at what he termed the five languages of love. And he also wrote a book later on the five languages of appreciation. And I can tell you for sure, for me, it's been one of the recurring Christmas gifts. Talking of gifts, I'm going to have a bit of my tea. This was gifted to me as well. Thank you very much. When we talk, it's also very important to just clear the throat. But I, and I thank the person who actually gave me that cup. It has my picture, but the tea is not so hot. When it is, you see my picture. But let's talk about actually the five languages of appreciation. And one of them is gifts. People like things in order to feel appreciated. And I remember when I was trying to practice this language of love, which is also a language of appreciation in the workplace setting. And I was thinking, as a leader myself, how can I do this in the most appropriate way? With all these policies, and I write policy, you don't want to be caught up being seen as bribing or being seen as, being inappropriate or whatever. So, back to what I'd said earlier about intimacy and knowing the little things. Sometimes they don't cost much, but they really can be appreciated by someone. Putting a name tag, gifting somebody some coaching time. I'm a certified coach, and so I learned how to be able to gift my time in that way. Today I do it. I even mentorship and everything. I gift people that kind of time. As I said, I used to travel a lot into different countries and whatever, and my personal assistant used to help so much in getting my tickets, getting everything ready, organizing the people I'll meet there and whatever, and just did an excellent job. And I knew her language of appreciation, how she loves to be appreciated is through gifts. And so when I would find nice local trinkets or locally made gifts that mean something to her, and I knew, because I like to know my team to a certain extent, I would definitely make sure that I come back with a gift and just say thank you. So, those are things that you can actually think about in terms of bringing an environment of love in the workplace. The second language is acts of service. And people say actions speak louder than words. Again, you can find different ways in which you can show acts of service. You can do an act. I used to tell my team, when somebody can't come to work because they're ill and they had an unfinished business or a phone call to make to a client, or a dashboard to complete and everything, you could do an act. You could, whether you're the leader, whether you're a colleague or whatever, you could do an act. Don't sit there and say, that's not my job, she's not here. Or you call clients and say, she's not here, she's gone on leave, she's coming back on Monday, so I can't do ABCD. An act of service, an action that speaks louder than words, can actually show companionate love in the workplace. For me, a clear story, I remember I had this young lady that one day when my husband and I were driving home, I just saw her. It was a simple, just split of a second. We were passing in the rain and she worked in my team. I never ever realized, one, she lives along the same route as mine. Second, she walks, whether it is rain, whether it's sunshine, whether it's what, she could not afford public transport. And I remember one day telling her off for coming late and this and that, and through another day, keeping her working late. And I didn't realize I'll be home in 10 minutes. And I know for a walk, it would take a very long walk. And then somebody whispered to me one day that she's pregnant. And I just told my husband, she will never. There's something about power distance in the African culture. And so I realized this lady would never come to me and ask for a lift. So what I had to do was just offer. It was my act of service. So the next day, when I saw her packing her bag to leave and everything, I told her, just as a chat and everything, oh, I saw actually you going down the same route as myself. Do you live down that route? I've seen you a few times and whatever. And she was like, yeah, I actually live 1 to 3 place. I wanted her to share from her own accord. I was like, do you mind if I give you a lift? Because I usually go straight home unless I'm not going straight home. But for the days I'm going straight home, would you mind if I give you a lift? And she looked at me sheepishly and everything. I knew, again, as I've told you, the power distance in the African culture. I said, I don't mind. I would actually love to, because it's a way of catching up with you and your work and everything. And she was like, okay. I showed her like she was doing me a favor by, accepting the lift. And for 2 good years, I gave her a lift. I left that organization a few years back, but I can tell you for sure she had another child. I've visited her. I have done my consulting work. She's always been an associate and everything, and we became good friends because she sat in our car and got a lift, an act of service. So, what are you going to do for a colleague? The third language of appreciation and love is words of affirmation. Using words to affirm others, being compassionate, telling them simple things like good job. You never know, maybe you're the only person who tells them good job, well done. Or let's start this conversation by me just affirming you. You're great. I value this, I value that. There's a book I read called I'll Have What She's Having. And in it, the author, Bobby Houston, really makes a powerful statement about just being able to tell somebody, oh, wow, what you're having is so great that I'll actually not even need a name for it. I'll just have what you're having. Affirming people. I'm a progressive coach, and so I know it's so, so important to move forward, and that motion is not progress. So when you affirm and give solutions and move a conversation forward, you actually help people to grow. I have a daughter whose love language is affirmation. And with the same love language and appreciation language is the same way you can hurt this person the most. So the people who love words and love affirmation, you can also really kill their spirit with the words that you use. And so in the workspace, let's just be mindful. I've spoken about mindfulness and emotional intelligence, about the words that we use. We could be breaking people down or building that culture and environment of love where we are affirming others, finding the good in others. For me, how I did this with my team, I used to have jazz, and we used to, if you've done something great, or I've observed something good, or somebody comes and whispers to me, hey, Sarah, so and so did this and did that, I don't have to wait until the end of the year or a performance conversation to tell you whether you're doing a good job or not. I would just write something handwritten, and I would pass by your desk and throw it in your cookie jar. So we used to call them cookies. And we loved, these sugar cubes and cookies and whatever, just nice words that were sweet. We were using these sweetened words to just make this person feel some level of affirmation. And every new year or every new employee, I had to make sure they had a jar by their desk. In fact, it became such a culture that people used to ask, okay, I've gotten my welcome pack when I've joined the organization, but why do I have a jar? It was a jar to enable others, your colleagues, the people that you supervise, and even your leaders, to affirm you and for you to affirm them. And they don't have to be there or whatever. You don't have to put your name, or you can put your name and just affirm this person, open their jar and put it in. And then quality time, giving someone some undivided attention. We are very poor at this. Many of us, somebody is talking to you, they're telling you their business, they're telling you their problems, and you're busy typing away and whatever, and not looking all official and very professional and, getting on with work and everything. And somebody just needs some quality time. Go out for lunch with them. I was a new employee in one organization, and I can tell you for the first 2 months, I was practically and deliberately looking for people to go to lunch with, and nobody gave me the time of day. Thankfully, I was hired in the HR space, and that is the one thing. When I was asked by the CEO, the first thing that I want to change, I said it is this culture of not noticing and giving any quality time, especially to new people. We are shown the toilets, the washrooms. We are shown, where to put our biometrics, how to come in and how to go, and that was it. And I said, I will be the solution. And by the time I was leaving, we had so many groups where you could actually embed yourself, spend time with people, like minded people, and everything. I showed them the importance of just listening at the level 3 level of listening, having and giving undivided attention when people are talking to you. And it was amazing. And finally, physical touch in the most appropriate way. Just pat somebody on the back, or tell them good job, greet them, have a nice handshake, whatever it is that your culture allows and is appropriate. There's a way sometimes you can just appreciate somebody in a physical way. And as we look and we continue discussing about love in the workplace, I just want us to stop today and ask ourselves, how do we feel when we are working in an environment where we feel loved? Really and truly. How does that motivate our work? How does that motivate our performance? How does that touch on our results? Each one teach one. Each one just choose one person to show some compassion and some love today. And we together are going to transform and change our workplaces. And I want to speak directly to assistants. What you do for your executives, what you do for the workplace. Some of you are the first face that people meet when they come into your organization or when they come to your executive's place. You're the first voice they hear on the phone before they interact with your executive. Show compassion. Get details. Know people. A level of intimacy. Show you care. Spread some love around. Wishing you a fantastic year. Good luck, and remember, love exists in the workplace. Sarah Richson, over and out. Thank you. Bye.